So it's kind of like their Patronus.
Pretty much.
Okay, now you're selling me. I can get behind this. Welcome back to 4 Geeks by Geeks, where weebs come to weeb out. Once again, I am Bozer.
I'm PK, and today's very special guest...
Jake Seymore.
Yes, Jake.
First and last, very formal.
I'm very formal, yeah.
How is he very formal? He's not ashamed to be a JoJo fan.
Nope.
He's putting his name out there. You can find him on any social media platform.
Yeah, which is beautiful, and like we said, we are talking all things JoJo, Bizarre Adventures. It's going to be beautiful. I'm super excited about it. But you were telling me before we started that you are actually a member of the subreddit.
Yes. Both subreddits. Yes.
Yeah. So, why don't you go ahead and tell the kind folks at home what JoJo is? So kind of just like give an overview of the show.
So, JoJo is a story about the Joestar bloodline. Each part or season is about a different member of the Joestar bloodline in chronological order up until about part 7 and 8. And that's for different reasons. But each part really has its own unique JoJo, and each one's of a different nationality, and they all share a similar kind of just to do what's right and go against the enemies, but also they have a lot of different character flaws that they play on a lot, and I think that's kind of the really cool part about each individual part in JoJo's.
So the premise is it follows this bloodline, and what's JoJo's Joestar's ultimate goal, like per part?
Generally, the plot isn't started until the villain actually does something. Most JoJo's, as it shows, their backstories are usually pretty undisturbed up until the point where actual plot happenings start to occur, and a lot of the time they even get started by previous characters you'll find in different parts, some from future parts, some from previous parts, especially in part 3, which is started by the main character in part 2, for instance. So yeah.
And so, like, big thing for you, like, what he was saying was, like, Dio. So you've only seen the first iteration of JoJo.
Mm-hmm. You're going to find out real quick that I have seen up to episode 4 of part 1. So I'm going to learn a lot tonight. I'm going to have opinions based on absolutely nothing. So if you disagree with me, good. You probably should.
You are just in doing that. But yeah, so, like, Dio was the antagonist to spark Jonathan Joestar's big adventure, and those people come all throughout all of them. I think there was the Pillars.
The Pillarmen. Yeah.
So that leads us to a big question: what about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure do you love? Like, what makes it so addictive to you?
Please tell me.
Character development is a big thing. I love storytelling. JoJo's really does that extremely well. The creator Araki, he is a mastermind of it. Personally, around the first part, especially since you're in kind of the same boat, a lot of people find part 1 to be pretty boring. But
yes, I do.
The more that you watch it, the more that you begin to love the characters, and I think that's kind of the best part about it, because you're like, okay, this part's kind of boring, I don't like it, and then the very end, you're talking, you got your rising action, you got your falling action. This is the pivotal point between the two, is when you begin to really love the characters, and you really enjoy everything that they've done so far.
So I've got to wait until the very end of the entire plot line to feel something positive for these characters?
Unfortunately, yes, but it pays off. It really pays off.
I'm used to, because as you all know by now, I'm the least devoted to the anime world at the table normally. I'm fairly new to the subject, but so I'm used to needing to get a couple episodes in before you fall in love with the characters. That's normal. I'm okay with that. But I thought maybe by 4 or 5 I would start to like JoJo. I'm not there yet, and now I've got 30 more episodes until I do.
Got a lot more than 30, but
oh no!
Yeah, pretty much.
Here's the thing, like I was saying, Uraki, even his claim to fame was that
That's the creator.
Yes,
Uraki.
the creator.
Okay.
His claim was the one thing he would change from season 1 was that Jonathan Joestar was too pure, too good. Like because there was no struggle, it made it almost too much. Like it made it really hard to connect with him because who do you know that's pure good? That's what made Jotaro so incredibly enticing as like the fan favorite of the JoJos was Jotaro because he's got enough like anguish in him, and because that was where he first made that flip, and it was always kind of supposed to be the end.
Right.
Was Jotaro, and then he didn't realize like how much like embedding stands into the series would cause him to draw it out as much as he did.
Right.
Okay.
Because the big thing about JoJo, it's not what you're watching, but it's more of the journey taken. So by the end, you respect all of the things the characters have done to get to the point that they're at in the end.
And I can get behind that. Like I've seen a lot of different anime, like a Gurren Lagann. I didn't like Kamina at first because he was brash and not great, but by the end I'm like, wow, I have so much respect for you. So I think I'll keep pushing through. Maybe I'll skip to the next part. I don't know.
So this should be easy going for you, but who's your favorite JoJo?
My favorite JoJo is none of them. Joseph Joestar. He's my favorite.
You know nothing about
Honestly, somehow saying that none of them was your favorite was the better answer at this point.
That's his name.
No, you're right.
Oh.
That is his name. But somehow saying no Joestar or no JoJo was better than saying Jonathan.
I don't know.
Right.
Just because, again, like it's not that he's a bad character. It's just that he doesn't set a good precedence for the JoJos.
There's so much There's so much more down the road.
Yes.
He can get so much better. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Do you have a favorite?
My favorite is Josuke Higashikata. Part 4 is definitely my favorite part out of all of them, mainly due to the fact that it's just about a bunch of high schoolers coming together to use their stands to defeat the main enemy.
Okay.
And
It's a high school story behind that.
and me being in high school, I relate a lot to that, and I really like the creativity behind the story. So,
Okay. PK, do you have a favorite?
Jotaro. So, multiple reasons. One, that was where I started. So
You started in
season 3. Yeah.
season 3?
So-
how do you feel about that, Jake?
I went back and watched because of that, but at the time my guitar player was watching it, and I was like, well, this seems silly. He's like, just watch one episode. So I was like, okay. So I sat and I watched one episode, and the pure ridiculousness of it enticed me. So I was like, okay. And I started watching, and I found out underneath all of this ridiculousness was actually an incredibly elaborate and good storyline.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god, like, I'm in this. And then I was like, okay, I should go back and watch. So he'd given me a warning. He was like, the first season, it's not great. He's like, it's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's not great. So I went back, I watched season 1, and I was like, hey, this is not great.
But you had that carrot dangling that you knew what it was.
I knew what was
going
going to come onto.
Okay, I'll have to let your carrot be my carrot.
Right, and like I told you, Matt Mercer is the voice of the dubbed version for Jotaro. I love Matt Mercer. He loves Matt Mercer. Critical Role for him. For me, it's Overwatch, which led me into that.
Both?
I mean, I love both, but like Overwatch, like McCree, that was where I like fell in love with Matt Mercer as a voice actor.
Yeah.
So I'm in it.
Moose is in it too.
Oh yeah, so
Moose is in it too.
Who's your favorite JoJo?
If you're asking me out here, I would have to say Jotaro as well. I'm a huge fan of Series 3, and that's usually where I try to get people started if they're not going to be patient enough to sit through the first 2 parts.
Well, 'cause that was also the introduction
You
of
just
Sans.
threw some shade at me. I can't imagine why.
These antlers got to throw shade somewhere.
Right, and like I was.
These antlers gotta throw shade somewhere. Put that on a shirt.
But yes, so like I was telling you, like the stands are such a pivotal point, and you didn't quite get it because you'd only seen season 1.
Well, for those of us that also don't get it, Jake, define what is the stand?
So a stand is basically, as described in JoJo's, is a manifestation of a person's soul. How that works is basically whatever a person is On the inside is how they're shown through their stand.
But a character's stand is separate from them.
Yes, it's
Yes.
it's their like internal like soul and spirit
Yeah.
coming out into a living form to fight for them.
So it's kind of like their Patronus.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, now you're selling me. I can get behind this.
See, I'm telling you. See, I think what you should do is stop watching season 1. I know that's gonna have a little bit of backlash. Go
Jake
watch
just
season.
gritted
It's just
his
his tea over there. Go watch season 3. Really get into it so that you know that something good is coming. Because I know
Okay.
how you work. Just.
I know how you do.
I know you need the carrot, so go get your carrot, see what you want, and come back.
Okay, I'll do that.
There you go.
So, going back to season 1, let's talk about some of the cool little like nods that he had inside of it. So, the original JoJo was actually created in 1980s. So the manga was 1980s, correct?
Correct.
So there's a lot of really cool reference to like 80s music throughout it.
Yes.
How so?
Well, like in part 1, you have 2 of the side characters. You have Speedwagon, which is a reference to REO Speedwagon, and then you have Will A. Zappelli, which is a reference to Led Zeppelin. And then in part 2, you have the Pillar Men, who are the enemies, named after really pivotal 80s rock bands such as Santana. That's right.
Yeah, Santana, AC/DC, and was it WoW? Is that
Cars. And
Wham?
then
Wham was what I was looking for.
There's a Wham character?
There's a Wham reference. Yeah.
That's awesome!
So they're Wham, AC/DC, and Santana are the 3 pillars for the second arc.
Oh,
And then,
okay, that's
and
cool.
then Cars, right? And then Joseph Joestar's actual romantic interest is Susie Q, which is a reference to Cream's Clearwater.
Creepy Clearwater's.
CCR.
CCR, yeah,
Revival.
it's a CCR's which song is Susie Q. So
I thought her name was like Irina.
that is
Athena.
that's Jonathan Joestar's.
Oh, Jonathan Joestar. I said Joseph Joestar. That's his dad, isn't it? I'm just gonna stop talking the rest of the episode.
But it's
Yeah.
fine.
That's the complicated part because
You
even
have to have JoJo in it.
even though each individual part follows a different person of the Joestar bloodline, it's not like dad, son kind of thing. It's grandfather, kid. We're going back to different child that no one knew about, and then this isn't even related to the Joestar bloodline.
He happens to have JoJo in his name, and I think the 4th one, your favorite, actually, it's really hard to get. It's a kanji writing that technically lets the second Jo be in there, but it's not pronounced.
Yes.
So while if you read it, it can look like JoJo. Spoken, it does not say it.
Correct.
Okay.
So, Uraki is notorious for being forgetful. He is notorious for changing things up on the fly, and it's incredible. That's what makes him so good. And he's also known to be a vampire, which I absolutely love that theory.
Yeah.
He's a low-key vampire.
Yeah, he's like, wow, he looks really young still, and he's very fashionable. He's probably a vampire.
That's the only
tossed around, which is
explanation.
incredible. But even he's come forward and saying that he would want to change things. Like I said, he thought that the original Joestar was too pure. And there's other things in it that, like, he didn't present stands as an option until the final part. And he had expected that to be the end, and then obviously he changed it. One of the pillars just disappears and never gets brought back up.
It's like, oh yeah, oops.
And he wanted to reintroduce Dio almost immediately and chose not to. So there's a lot of things he would change. What would you guys want to change that you've seen thus far?
Can I go first, having no basis for any of my opinion?
Go ahead.
Okay. I watched dubs, so, have an opinion. I don't like to read.
He literally just took his glasses off. It's like he's done with you.
So, I would change the horrible English accents from season 1. I don't know if it's a choice to be, like, as exaggerated and, like, inconsistent as they are, but if that is a choice, I don't understand it, and if it's not a choice, then I also don't understand that. I would change their... Everything they say is like this, and it's all in the same quality, and it really keeps me from buying into the story. I don't know. It's really the voice acting is probably the main thing that I have a problem with right now.
So just the casting of Which isn't anything to do with storyline, you just can't get beyond the voice acting.
And they're I guess it's an artsy choice. Like sometimes his hair's blue and then other times it's like green. That's probably like
reason
a cool
for that.
artsy
There's a
choice.
big reason for that.
Oh, okay. What's the
Go ahead
reason?
and explain it.
So they really changed the color palette a lot, especially when something dramatic is going on. They
Uh-huh.
really like to showcase the different characters and the scenes in different colors to really drive the point of it.
Okay.
And especially in the further parts, you see this a lot more often. But when something dramatic is happening, you're gonna see them changing color completely, and it's gonna be like, oh, something's about to happen.
Which is kind of an interesting, different technique to show like this is important. Pay attention to this, rather than like music.
And well, because remember, this was originally a manga, and he did that in the manga. He paid extra to have colored pages get thrown in for the big impacts happen, and all of a sudden you get a colored page.
Oh.
And now they're like showcased that now things are changing. It really drives that impact home.
Okay, so that's my unbasis opinion. What about you guys?
Well, I don't know. There's not a whole lot that I would specifically change because I'm such a big fan of it. Definitely the plot holes are the biggest part for me because there's things that he really does not follow up on, and it gets heavier throughout the series. But since Josuke is my favorite character, there's a huge plotline in Part 4, and even though it doesn't seem like it when I'm going to say what it's about, but it's about his hair and why he does his hair the way he does. And you could tell Rocky was really setting it up for like a really cool, like possible time travel story.
Okay.
Nothing
And
happens.
just let it go. And I actually have the same issue, but not with that season, but with season 3. I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he's Jotaro's sidekick, Green School Uniform.
Kakyoin.
Yes, thank you. He has one of the coolest abilities with like puppets.
Oh,
that
yeah.
You get to see. I mean, it's super powerful. And then he does it, and it was pretty early on, and then just never happens again.
Yeah.
It's never mentioned. It's never brought up, and it could have helped them through the storyline multiple occasions. And it's like he completely forgot that he gave him that ability.
I feel like that's the point though. That since it could have helped them, he's like, no, I'm not doing that. They're gonna suffer. They're gonna find their way out of it without getting like a complete,
I mean,
whatever.
it was almost too powerful, which
Yeah.
was crazy. But like, if
So
they
he
just,
like changed his mind about him having the power at
that's
all.
what I felt like. But he didn't unwrite it. He didn't undo it.
Yeah.
He still
Right.
used it at that point. So I almost wonder, like, he could have written it as a drawback, which I think would have helped. But because he didn't, it just felt missing. Like, I remember thinking about it, and I was waiting for him to use it again. And then I got to the end
Yeah.
of the series, and I was like,
Hey, that didn't happen at all.
it just happened once, which was fine, I guess. But that would be my biggest, like, I would need to change that one
Yeah.
thing about it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to know, what do you guys love about JoJo? What would you change? I am really early on in the series, so I know I've got to keep going, and so I can actually form a real opinion. I'm fairly confident that if I push through, I'm going to end up loving it, just like you guys do. But please let us know in the comments below. Sell me so that I know that I have something to look forward to.
Yes, and as always, if you like this kind of video, if you want to see more anime content or more JoJo content, give us that like, and then hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And until next time, I'm PK,
I am Bozer.
And I'm Jake Seymore.
full name. And until next time, you just keep
Geeking out.